Hi guys, good morning and welcome to the channel. This is Niladri Mukherjee and I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I practice here in Guelph, Ontario. So this is a Friday morning and I thought to record a video to let you all know, some common questions that I'm getting a lot. Hence, I thought to clarify this in the form of a short video. And this video is going to be about visit visa, predominantly about visit visa processing time, because that's, I believe, the most commonly asked questions these days. And the applicants are really at a various stages of the application. Some of you have already submitted your application, awaiting a decision. Some of you are just on the verge of submitting application, and many of you are still deciding, well, whether it's the right time or not to submit a application for a visit visa to visit Canada, maybe due to whatever purpose of visit that be. So hence this video. Now, what really you have to understand, and here is a big disclaimer from my side, is that, well, I mean none of the immigration consultants are not really privileged enough to get any more information, any additional information with respect to the processing time than what you otherwise get through the IRCC website, right? So it's always a good idea to look into the IRCC website, get an idea about the processing time, and then make the application if you think that you cannot really wait till that long processing time. For example, if you're applying for a visa from India as on date, the processing time would tell you approximately about 95 days. And as you know by now that it's not really 95 business days, it is 95 calendar days. And days usually, the counting really starts after you have submitted your biometric application. After you have submitted your biometric. So if you are planning to apply for a visit visa from India as on day to day, you really have to factor in those 95 days and then have to plan your trip. So make the application in such a manner that you do not plan a trip in the next month or saying, and then in that case you will be like extra anxious or extra cautious, right? So it's a good idea to look at the IRCC processing time and then start the application process. The IRCC processing time may not even give you the exact amount of days that your application can possibly take, because obviously it varies from case to case, it varies from file to file, how many applicants are there in the file, and I will talk about all those things in this video. But in a nutshell, that should be your benchmark, that should be your yardstick while you lodge for your temporary resident visa or any visa applications for Canada. But as I've mentioned, it's really not me or any other licensed immigration consultant or a lawyer that is privy to any specific information that you candidates are not otherwise be aware of, because we have to understand the way government of Canada works. Here is a democratic country, here is a socialist country that believes in information transmission to the extent possible. Hence the government tries to give candidates as much power, as much information as possible, and really does not give any additional information to us. The additional information that we receive in the form of case notes, that you can also get in the form of case notes, right? So what I can talk about in this video is from my practice, from my clients. And as most of you know that I really do not take a lot of clients at the same time. We are a small team, we take very limited, very specific number of clients to ensure that we are able to do justice to each cases. So this may not represent a broad spectrum of the clients or broad spectrum of audience, but shall definitely give you an idea as to what's really happening on a more generalistic basis. First of all, talk about India. So I do a lot of applications for visit visa from India. For the most part, the application gets processed within month to 45 days. That's the average kind of a processing time. Now, I have received a couple of applications that's been processed within like 3 or 4 business days to even 2 weeks. But to be honest, those may be exceptional situations, right? I will not imagine that every application will be processed, no matter how hard I work on that application, no matter how strong the documentation is, no matter how proactive the client is. The processing time really depends on the government, and hence a month to 45 days is what I have seen, or I am still seeing for at least since the beginning of this year. Right. So from India, if you're applying for a visit visa to Canada, maybe a month to 45 days should be a good enough time for your application to get a decision. Now, the decision may be an acceptance, decision may be a rejection, depends on the case, but that is something that you'll be looking at. Say, talk about Pakistan. Pakistan, if you talk about the Government of Canada website, the government gives you a processing time of 70 days. Realistically speaking, the processing time in Pakistan is a little bit more as compared to the processing time in India. Now, I have no information or no such additional information to tell whether the number of applications are higher in Pakistan as compared to India or any other country, which leads to the additional processing time. But I can tell you from my experience is that a lot of the processing time is being invested in the background check, in the security check, which is done in any other country. Generally speaking, the clients that I work for Pakistan, I usually get a decision from 45 days to 2 months. So the 70 days is not super unrealistic when it comes to Pakistan. Well, there have been clients that have waiting for like 3 months as well, but those were complicated refusals applications, and that those applications usually take time. For fresh application, for freshly made, well-made applications with no such previous refusal, again, a 45 days to 2 months should be a good enough time to look at for the clients from Pakistan. Let's talk about Africa. Now, I do understand it's a broader continent. The processing time should vary and is actually varying from one part of Africa to other. But more generally speaking, a month should be a good enough time to look at from, for Ghana, for Sudan, for Nigeria, and for other parts of Africa as well. For example, for Morocco, a month should be a good enough time. There have been cases, it is quite interesting, there have been cases where I have received a decision, thankfully those decisions were positive decisions within 15 days, but I would imagine those were exceptional circumstances. The clients were very, very proactive in giving me the all the documents that I have requested for, and I have submitted those applications on time, or rather before time. Fortunately, those decisions came way before time as well. But more generally speaking, a month to about 40-45 days is a good enough time to be looking at when it comes to the application from Africa. Southeast Asia, I can talk about Philippines, I can talk about Malaysia, I can talk about Vietnam. Again, a month to 40 days. Typically, I would say a month, it's a little bit lower as compared to Africa, is a little bit lower as compared to Pakistan. A month is something that is good enough to look at. And again, Southeast Asia is a broad geography. The number of applications, in my opinion, is a little bit higher from the Philippines, and hence the processing time is a little bit higher as well. But again, a month should be a good enough time to look at. Middle East. Middle East, does not really take a lot of time. 15 days to 45 days. It's a very, very broad kind of a time frame, because obviously there are a lot of countries in the Middle East. I would imagine the number of applications from Dubai will be far higher as compared to maybe the number of applications in Abu Dhabi. But I have worked with quite a few countries from the Middle East, from my clients in Middle East, and the lowest processing time was 15 days, and the highest that I have seen is in between like 45 to 50 days. So within 2 months, you should be receiving a decision if the application has been done properly, right? So that's pretty much about the processing time. Now, if yours take longer than the anticipated processing time, than the one that is mentioned in the government website, well, there are some steps that you can possibly take that I will talk about in the later section of the video. But let's just try to understand, right, what are the factors that really influence the processing time. The first and foremost important factor, as we probably all agree, is the how strong or how well made the application is. And I cannot really stress it enough that sometimes people tend to sort of give, like a pass that, well, it's a visit visa application, so it should be accepted, right? Because I'm visiting Canada. Well, no, I don't want to scare you guys. Visit visa application rejection rate is really, really very high. I cannot talk about United States, but the number of applications rejected on the ground that you will not leave Canada, citing some boilerplate reasons such as your purpose of visit, your home ties, your assets, and all those template-based reasons, is going up substantially, right? So make a superbly strong application with a very strong submission letter or a letter of explanation. There is really no denying about that. That should be your step one. You should not have the attitude, I don't think you have, but still it's my duty to tell you, is that, well, if my application is rejected, I will then see what needs to be done. No, we have to make sure that our application gets accepted in the first attempt itself, and hence it's our responsibility, it's our objective to submit a superbly well-made application from day one, right? So that's our priority. We should all do that. Second factor that actually influences the decision of the application or the processing time of the application is that how many people are actually there in that application, right? A single applicant usually gets the decision a little bit with faster manner as compared to a family, and this has been historically proven. The more the number of people in that application, the number of processing, the processing days would go up. So there is a positive correlation. It is understandable as well, because then in that case, if there are like 3 applicants in the file, then in that case the officer will have to spend additional time in doing all of their background check. Maybe the submission letter will be longer. Obviously the documents, the number of documents added would be longer, and hence the review time will be higher as well. So the shorter or the lesser the number of applicants, the lesser is the processing time. That's been a historical correlation. And I really did not see any exception these days. But this does not really mean that you will leave your family back home and apply on your own. I'm not saying that, but you must understand that there is a correlation between the number of applicants and the processing time, right? So that's important. Another important factor, which is obviously very important, and as we have discussed before, is where you have submitted your application from. The number of countries, or the number of applications in the country where you are submitting your application has a direct correlation impact with the processing time. For example, if you're submitting your application from UK, the processing time will be way less as compared to if you're submitting your applications from India, right? So there is no denial of that the number of visit visa applications or any visa applications in countries such as India, such as China, such as Bangladesh, such as Pakistan are like superbly high, and hence the processing time would generally be higher as well in those specific countries. Other factor that you have to keep in mind, whether you have a previous rejection or not, do keep in mind please, is that a previous rejection may impact your application in a may impact your processing time in a little bit negative way, in the sense that your processing time would go up, because when you're submitting your reapplication, if you will, after getting a 1 or 2 kind of rejections, the officer will first have to see why they have rejected you in the past. They have to go through your case notes, have to see what really made you make a new application this time, and how different is your new application as compared to the previous application, and hence the processing time usually goes up. So if you're submitting a fresh application, I would imagine the processing time would be less as compared to you submitting a reapplication, right? So there is no denial of that. Now, I would also talk about what you should do and what you should not do, right? While maybe you're waiting for the decision, or while you're submitting an application. While submitting an application, it's, as I've said, make a superbly strong application. That's your step 1. Do not submit a web form. Do not do anything unless the prescribed processing time in the IRCC processing time gets over. For example, if you're submitting an application from Pakistan today, and if the IRCC processing time shows 70 days, you really have to wait till 70 days, irrespective of the fact whether your friends have received a visa within 15 days, right? So if you submit a web form, if you request for case notes before the processing time gets over, before the prescribed processing time as per the government website gets over, you really see a standard response that we are processing your application. And I can also tell you is that really impacts the processing time in a negative way, because officers do not like to read through a lot of web forms, a lot of case notes, etc., while they're processing an application. So either they can respond to your emails or your web forms, or they can really process your application. So please do not really complicate your applications in any way or any form. Do not submit any web form, do not submit or do not do anything unless and until the processing time is over, irrespective of the fact whether people may have received a decision way faster than you do. Each file is independently reviewed, each file is different, each application is different. So we please have to be mindful about that. Now, when you see the processing time is over, then submit a web form. It's a good idea to submit a web form before you do a case note, and I will talk about that just a little bit. But always submit a web form, see what's going on before you submit a case note. And why do you do that? Because as of right now, as on day, a case note, a GCMS note takes anywhere between 2 to 3 months. And guess what? By the time you get your GCMS note, you might as well get the decision on your file, right? So, and GCMS note costs $5, and then if you're using a legal form to get access to the note, because if you're not in Canada, that form will take its own professional fees as well. So why do you really want to spend even $30, $40, $50, or whatever the money is, right? When a web form would very well serve the purpose if it is within that processing time. Now, if it exits, then it may be a good idea to submit for a case note, because under the Right of Information Act, under the Right of Privacy Act, you have the right to get to know what's really happening on your application, because you have invested your time, you have invested your money in the process, and it's your legal right to ask for the status update from the government of Canada, but only after the prescribed processing time is over. And if you are submitting a request to get an ATIB request, to get your GCMS notes, the GCMS note is taking a longer time than anticipated, in between 2 to 3 months, regardless of the country that you are applying it from. Now, do not raise multiple waveforms. This is also very important. Sometimes we tend to get impatient, which is understandable. We are waiting for a decision. Sometimes we tend to be impatient and we tend to raise multiple waveforms. Do not do that. That really complicates the process. If you have raised a waveform, and even if it's taking longer for you to get a decision, you really kindly have to wait for the decision before you raise another waveform. Do not do that. That complicates the process. If you do not get a response on your waveform, maybe after a month, then it may make sense to raise another waveform. But please do not raise like multiple waveforms within a span of 10 days, 15 days. Do not raise another waveform within a month. That's the golden rule, right? So another thing is that do not really upload additional documents unless and until they ask you to upload additional documents. That really complicates the process. A lot of time when people wait for a decision, they think if I upload additional documents, irrespective of the situational change that they might have undergone through or they might be undergoing through. Sometimes people tend to think that uploading additional documents would help the officer to prioritize in any shape or form. It doesn't. It complicates the process. It delays the processing time. So unless and until our officers are asking you to upload documents, do not really upload additional documents. Last and not the least, I do understand, I do appreciate your patience in this whole process, but what we really have to understand is that it's your file, it's your privacy. Please do not share your file number, your document number, your personal case specific information, either on YouTube comment or on Facebook groups or in other social media forums. Because guys, we really do not know how that information is being transmitted when you put a personal specific information on social media such as Facebook or maybe on Instagram, right? There are all kinds of people around, and it really does not matter what your friends are telling you about the processing time. If you are not getting a decision on your file, you are not getting a decision on your file, and irrespective of Mr. XYZ's processing time, your processing time could still be what your processing time is, right? So please do not share or write personal information such as your application number or anything that you think is personal to you on social media. I have seen cases, I do not want to name some specific countries where I see most number of fraudulent activities happening in, but frauds do take place. So please do not share your personal information. Just drop us a line, contact@nuvonation.ca. And also, as always, kindly go through the website www.nuvonation.ca. We have transparently mentioned everything about us, everything about our services, everything about our offerings, how to get started with us, how to book a professional consultation. Go through that kindly and let us know if we could be of any professional assistance. And I see a couple of questions here. Mr. Gurpreet is saying, recently I received a refusal letter under 179B. Personal assets and financial status not matched. So Mr. Gurpreet, regulations 179 is just a template, right? You will not leave Canada at the end of the stay because of blah, blah, blah reasons. It really does not tell you anything, right? Because along with you, maybe 1 million people are receiving the rejection under the very same reason. If you want me to look into your case, really what's really gone wrong and how to make things right, the first step would be to book a professional consultation. In that consultation, I will talk to you and I will review all your documents, your submission letter, your letter of explanation. I will have all my questions for you, and only then I will be able to let you know what's really gone wrong and how to make things right next time. A good idea would be to apply for GCMS notes, but as I have mentioned, GCMS notes really takes about 3 months on an average, and I'm assuming you're from India. It is going to take 3 months, 2.5 to 3 months. So if you're planning to visit Canada anytime sooner, it may be a good idea to apply basically to reapply without even applying for a GCMS notes. If you cannot really apply, wait for that long. But if you have time, it's a good practice to apply for GCMS notes, right? So that will be it. My vision is saying my file is 2021. Visit visa still final decision is not come. When can I expect, Mr. My Vision, or what your name is? If you have submitted your application prior to September 2021, you must reapply immediately. You do not wait for a decision. It really depends on when in September, when in 2021. So anytime before September 2021, if you have submitted your application, sir, you really have to reapply, because This is a very common trend that I see quite a few times, is that people wait for a decision, then they submit a web form, the next day they get a rejection, saying that your purpose of visit does not match. And obviously my purpose of visit wouldn't match, because my purpose of visit is what I had stated in 2021. That might have changed, but you know what, we're dealing with the cases of backlogs. They are more inclined to reduce the backlog in whatever shape or form. And I would be honest with you guys, I have seen a lot of unfair decisions as well. Hence, it will be a good idea, if you need professional assistance, that is, it may be a good idea to book a professional consultation for me to review all your documents, to really see what's really going on there. And whether you should reapply or not, right? Because if you think there is a personal change in circumstances, so even if you have got vaccinated after September 2021, and if you have submitted your file before September 2021, you may, or you should really reapply, right? So yeah, I want to talk about LMIA sometime tomorrow. I will see how it goes. It's another common question that I receive, how to get a LMIA job offer and things like that. I want to clear a couple of myths. I want you to ensure that you know everything about LMIA before you venture into that whole LMIA game. You are watching this video from. I really appreciate you watching the video, and I will see you in the next video, guys. Bye now.